If you're anywhere near as entrenched in the Project Sekai fandom as I am, you'll have heard of a little thing called tiering. If you haven't, it's basically giving up your life to our Lord and Savior Hatsune Miku for 9 days while you play the same chart over and over and over and over. Allow me to stress that I am not kidding. Both times I've decided to tier, I thought, oh, it can't be that bad, right? It is. It is that bad. But since I love to make poor decisions, let's go over my VBS WL2 tiering experience, because I still did it anyway. I'll talk more about my first ever tiering experience later, but after that, I decided that the 9-day runtime of a normal Project Sekai event was too much for me. I couldn't keep up the effort for that long without completely crashing and burning. I didn't think I would tier again, but then I remembered that World Link chapters only run for 4 days. 4 days I could do. But also, going for the more popular characters would be too competitive for me. That meant Night Court was out, as much as I love them. I fell back on VBS instead, since reading all of their stories has made me an avid VBS fan, even more so than before. I wanted the second World Link cards anyway because they're gorgeous, and that would give me a bit of an advantage, since the banner cards have an extra event bonus boost. I started seriously thinking about it. Akito is the most popular VBS character and one of the most popular in the game, which means that his chapter would be super competitive. Luckily, I am not an Akito fan, but I am an An fan. I decided that I would try for An's chapter. 4 days of heavy tiering I could do, right? But then I looked at the cutoffs for the first World Link chapters and noticed that Toya wasn't too terrible in terms of how high his cutoff was. I also really like Toya. It's better not to waste all of the crystals I'm going to spend on these cards, right? Might as well try for Toya too, right? How wrong I was. Okay, enough suspense. Let's get into the happy part of the story, gambling. Yes, usually pulling on the banners in Project Sekai turns out to be an unfortunate story, but I've learned my lesson with the gacha system. I save. Even so, I still had to spark one of the cards. World Link banners are a little bit different since there's 4 featured cards as opposed to the usual 3, but it turned out okay. I wanted the full set, but I was really only concerned about getting An and Toya. Not just because I was cheering for them, but because they're my 2 favorites from the set. And I got them both! But only those 2. And 2 cards out of 4 isn't really enough to give me an edge in tiering. By the time I pulled Toya, I only needed 1 more 10 pull in order to spark, so I did, and I used my stickers and tickets to spark Akito. Yes, I know, surprising, but my team wouldn't have worked if I sparked Kohane. Normal Project Sekai events focus on 1 attribute, and the featured cards are all the same attribute. World Link cards are different, since World Link events want every attribute. That makes team building a little bit more difficult. Anyway, it worked out. I had a Kohane card that would fit into the midnight slot, so Akito could take the happy slot. Oh, I also filled my support groups, leaving my event bonus around 516. Here's the team before the event started. Toya was the first chapter of the event, and An was the last, so once I made my team, I hunkered down and waited for the event to begin. I guess I should talk about energy now, huh? Tiering requires so much bonus energy. Honestly, you have no idea. My previous tier had drained so many of my resources and I still hadn't fully recovered, but here's the screenshot of my bonus energy cans pre-Toya chapter. I played on 5 times energy, so again, so many resources. One piece of advice that I never see in any of those tiering guides is to stockpile energy before the event. You can watch ads to get 10 free bonus energy cans per day. I didn't really care about the event running prior to VBS World Link 2, sorry Shiho, so I played enough to get what I needed from the event shop and then let my energy cap. I would watch the daily ads and let my energy overcap, stockpiling as much as I could prior to the event start. Oh, and challenge shows don't use any energy, so I did those too for the crystals. The grind never stops. The stockpiled energy doesn't account for much, but it's better than nothing, right? And trust me, if you tier, you're going to need every bonus can you can get your hands on. World Link events start later in the day compared to regular events. That actually ended up working in my favor, since that meant I could go to work and all that fun stuff and dedicate a few good hours to Start Dash. I used a tiering server for my run, and they really do make a huge difference. Massive shout out to everyone in the Room 8 Secret Society. You're all the best. So, Start Dash is about the first 3 or 4 hours of the event. Because I like sleep and I had to be up early the next day, I only went for about 2 hours and 20 minutes before stopping for the night. Oh, and I was playing Ebby for Start Dash. After letting my auto shows go, I went to bed on day 1 at rank 310. Not a bad start, but not very promising. It got even worse the next morning. I woke up to rank 701. That's a massive fall off for only a few hours of not playing. I burned my naturals before I had to go to class, and then some more Ebby in between classes, and solo queued throughout the day as best as I could. For my solo queuing songs, I alternated between Shoujo Rei and Hana ni Kaze, depending on how much time I had. I also remembered that my sekai was a thing, so I started doing that for a little extra help. It's not much, since my VBS gate isn't leveled at all, but 8,000 points per day without spending any energy is better than nothing. That night I did another 2 hours and 20 minutes of stacked room tiering, and I had switched to Lost and Found at this point since I was starting to eat through all of my resources. And it's only day 2. I ended the night at rank 497. Yeah, top 500 was looking a little bit impossible. I woke up to rank 678 on day 3. I didn't have class that day, but I did have to go to work, so I just solo queued before then and anytime I had a break on my shift. All I was really doing was keeping my rank stable, but it's better than falling further. That night, I did more stacked Lost and Found tiering for about an hour and a half. While in the server that night, I just so happened to queue into a room with one of my favorite Project Sekai artists. I was also able to talk to them for a bit and was just overall a really wonderful experience. Really made the time go by faster. My eyes were really starting to glaze over though. They tend to get really blurry and unfocused after long tiering sessions. It's for the grind though, right? I ended day 3 at rank 598. I began to accept my fate at this point. T500 was not happening. But that's okay, top 1000 was still well within my grasp. I just had to hold it together for a few more hours. I also had to work on the morning of day 4. I woke up to rank 719. Not terrible since I was only going for top 1000 now, but still it made me nervous. I burned my naturals before work, kept an eye on it on my breaks, and put in another solid hour of solo queuing once I got home. I don't think it's necessary to mention it every time, but I have been doing my auto shows and my sekai every day of the event. Pre-end dash, which for me is about the last 2 hours of the event, my rank was 751. Not really sure why I was so stressed, but I was. I switched back to Ebby for end dash, getting in around 2 hours or so of stacked tiering. I tried to wait until the last 2 hours of the event to start running for end dash, but I got too anxious and started about 45 minutes early. While playing Ebby, one of the other tiers I was matched with convinced me to stop early and save whatever resources I had for On. Since this chapter has been crazy competitive, and let me tell you, this diary doesn't even scratch the surface of how difficult this chapter was to tier for, On would likely be a little less strenuous. Even though she's my amazing, wonderful queen, she's still not as popular as the boys. Anyway, I listened to that advice and stopped about 40 minutes before the event ended. My rank immediately after stopping was 648, and my final rank for Toya's chapter was, drumroll please, 659. Yes, now that I'm on the other side of this tier, I realize I could have stopped a lot earlier and saved myself a lot of time and resources. Oh well though, what's done is done, and I managed to stay well within the top 1000 for Toya. Now On's chapter was the last of the 4, so I got to have a little bit of a break during Akito and Kohane's chapters. I did the same thing that I did before the event began and stockpiled my energy. That meant I didn't get a rank at all for Akito or Kohane's chapter since I only did my sekai and challenge shows during those days. Sorry guys, my queen awaits. Thankfully, the person in the tiering server was right. On's chapter was a lot less competitive. For the most part, I stuck to the same routine as I did for Toya. Oh, but I started out with Lost and Found. Here are my energy reserves at the start of On's chapter. You'll notice how much Toya drained me. So I was really worried about running out of bonus cans. Lost and Found is more energy efficient, so I stuck with that for the majority of the chapter. I went for about 2 hours and 45 minutes for Start Dash plus my sekai. I decided to skip out on the autos since they really drain your resources without much reward. I needed them for Toya, but I thought I could scrape by without them for On. I went to bed on day 1 at rank 202, which is much better than Toya's Start Dash. Day 2 was a Saturday, and yet again I had to work. I was also hanging out with a friend afterwards, so I needed to play shows as much as I could in the little breaks that I had. I woke up to rank 411 and kept it around there for the majority of the day. Once I got home, I did another 2-ish hours of Lost and Found and ended day 2 at rank 344. Unfortunately, day 3 of the event was even busier for me. I knew I'd barely be able to play at all, so I just had to hope that the other tierers were running out of steam and or resources. That morning, I woke up to rank 440. I had a photo shoot to get to, so I solo queued for about 40 minutes before letting my game lay abandoned for several more hours. It's okay, really. I was right to assume that many people were getting really burnt out by this point. After getting home, I decided to do my autos for a little extra boost, alongside a good 2 hours and 15 minutes of Lost and Found. My rank going into the final day of the event was 398. I didn't want to hope just yet, but T500 was looking more than a little possible for me. We're almost done, I promise. I was getting really tired too. I managed to stay in the top 500 overnight and woke up to rank 476. Yet again, I was very busy on day 4 with a very limited amount of time to put in some good tiering hours. N- is where everyone locks back in, so I knew my rank would fall faster on this day compared to others. I burned my naturals, went to class, then switched to Ebby for about an hour and a half before I had to go to work. Pre-N-, my rank was 416. It wasn't as much of a buffer as I would have liked, but it would have to do. Funny thing is, my shift ended 30 minutes before the event did, which meant that I had absolutely no way to seriously tier those last 2 hours. Instead, I saved my autos and let those run while I was on shift, and then I would try to sneak in a show or two on my breaks. Once my shift was over, I rushed home and sat in my car to solo queue those last 15 minutes. Honestly, I knew I would be okay once I saw my rank with an hour of the event left. All I really wanted from rushing to play shows was to get an even number. 659 for Toya was just an icky number, and I didn't want that to happen again. So, did it work? Did I make top 500? Why, yes I did. And I got a much more satisfying rank, 446. My highest tier yet, and my first top 500. Hooray! Okay, that took a lot longer to get through than I expected. It was a busy event for sure, and I was much more detailed in keeping track of what I did on each day. I've been a little bit elusive about my first tiering experience, but that's because I kinda made a video about it and never finished it. It's all completely scripted, recorded, and a fourth of the way edited, so let me know if you'd like to see that eventually. Most of what I said in that video will be made redundant by this one, but I'll release it if there's some interest. Oh, and here's a hint for what event I tiered for. If you know me, you probably won't be surprised by it. Honestly, I might tier again one day. After I've recovered all of my resources, that is. It just kinda sucks that my favorite characters and events are also very popular characters and events, so that just makes my life a whole lot harder in terms of tiering. I don't know, we'll just see where the wind takes me, I suppose. I hope you enjoyed my little tiering diary. This video is a bit different from my usual stuff, but I put so much effort into this that I figured it would make for good content. Look out for the event story summary of this world link soon. Take care out there.